Namaskar. Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Monday nights are Abhijit nights, and after a break of 1 week, he's back with us to answer your questions. We're going to jump straight to questions because we have a shortened session today. So let's see how much ground we can cover. Abhijit, Namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Vanakkam Madanali, Vetrivel to one and all.
And Vetrivel, Veeravel, Abhijit, let's start with the questions right away. Let's go with the first question. Ishan Sharma wants to know, what do you see the future of Eknath Shinde and Shiv Sena, both factions individually, post the crisis? How will the crisis impact the Municipal, Vidhan Sabha and Lok Sabha elections in Maharashtra?
Well, that remains to be seen, no? See, he's taken a bulk of the MLAs. We suspect he's taken a bulk of the MPs as well. Basically, there was a very nice article by Sheila Bhatt where she was saying, how Shiv Sena got about 16.4% of the vote. All of them. NCP got slightly higher, 16.7. These guys got 16.4, or maybe I'm getting those two numbers mixed up. The Congress got slightly less at 15 point something. Now, 16 plus 15 plus 16 plus 16 plus 15 is a very large number.
Right.
But when you take that 16 and add it to the BJP's 30 something plus, 36 plus, that becomes an unassailable majority, theoretically on paper. The question is how much of it has been taken by Eknath Shinde's faction. Now, given the sheer number of MLAs that have moved, is it a good extrapolation that large numbers of the council seats, and remember, it's the council that's really powerful out there. Okay, that is where a lot of the money is made. BMC is the richest council in India. It's richer than, literally, it has more money than several states get in the central allocation. So that is something to be seen. I personally feel that the very fact that a lot of Shiv Sena councillors were not able to make money would see to it that they automatically gravitate towards the Eknath Shinde faction and go with it. But again, we will be able to predict both the Vidhan Sabha, only the Vidhan Sabha elections, based on what happens with the BMC elections. Remember, the BMC elections have been postponed consistently, I suspect, waiting for this day, which means that the entire setup has been in the making for almost a year and a half now. It is not something new that's happened. Maybe something's clicked now. Then the BMC elections will take place. Based on the BMC elections, we will know where the Vidhan Sabha is going. The Lok Sabha is a completely different ballgame because remember, people are now smart enough, at least the evidence seems to show that people are smart enough to vote for one party.
We seem to have momentarily lost him. He'll come back online. And here is a shout out to all our viewers to like this segment, this episode, so that we get a really good response from all those who are joining. Because as we go ahead, please.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Oh, did you lose me before?
Yes, yes, we did. So what we want to know was, you said Lok Sabha is a different ballgame.
Lok Sabha is a different ballgame, but let's wait for the BMC elections coming up now. Basically, all the council elections coming up, corporation elections coming up. Based on that, we'll be able to extrapolate Vidhan Sabha. The council elections are the big test.
Next question, please. Hello? Abhishek wants to know, sir, radicalization among Indian Muslims have increased in past 2 decades. A lot of Muslims go to Gulf countries for jobs. Are they not worried about radical Muslims going and creating problem there?
So, I am least worried now about the Gulf Muslims. Maybe I was worried about them once upon a time, but the radicalization is no longer happening out there. If you look at the way Saudi Arabia and the Emirates have turned, there is a much higher likelihood that they're being radicalized out here by the Deobandis and the Barelvis than they are there by the Salafis. Because remember, all the radicalization modules NBS is now removed. All the radicalization modules were removed very, very early on by the Emiratis. Okay, Qatar, even they have instituted lots of reforms very early on because they realized it was going to affect them, even though they don't get along with the Emiratis and the Saudis all that much. What we need to worry about now is the domestic ones. I would actually say if they're going to the Gulf, thank God for that, because at least there, they will be under much better surveillance. They'll be under much better intelligence coverage. And the kind of Islam they will be taught will be closely monitored by the Emirati and Saudi government, or the Omani government, or the Qatari or the Bahraini government. And it will in fact be a lot less radical than the kind of Codswallop that gets taught here.
By the way, viewers, I don't know if you know this or not. In Dubai, you cannot use WhatsApp. Doesn't work. And many of the other softwares don't work. Whichever one uses encryption. So there is a slightly different kind of a state you are dealing with. If somebody wants to go and work there, more power to them. Kanda Batata. Roe v. Wade looks nuanced to me, as it doesn't advocate to ban abortion completely and doesn't allow late-term abortions. So why is it an issue for conservatives?
See, it's an issue for conservatives because it was never meant to be a central subject. It was always meant to be a federal subject which each one of the states would then decide for themselves. Number one. Number two, the problem was it had gone too far. If you look at the figures that have come out of late, what is this? It's not the Gutenberg Institute. It's a pro-choice. It's a pro-choice health, women's health thing that was born out of what choices is it? Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood.
Yeah. Out of Planned Parenthood, I'm going to read out the exact figures. If I can find it, which I can't seem to find right now. 98% of abortions are elective abortions, and they are made for lifestyle choices. Okay, they are not made for reasons of rape, incest, saving the mother's life, etc., etc., etc. Now, what happens in all these things is when one side overreaches, the other side pushes back viciously. And that's what happened. They overreached. They want to normalize lifestyle and elective abortions, which had nothing to do with the life of the mother, etc. If it had to do with the life, I'm sure you could have found a modus vivendi. This was a classic case of going to extremes and then shooting yourself in the foot. And unfortunately, what you're going to see is this is exactly where the gay movement is also going to end up. And this is where trans rights are also going to end up, because they have stretched it now so far, you're going to see the backlash against it is going to be vicious.
Yes, indeed. In fact, one of the Supreme Court judges, Justice Clarence Thomas, has already indicated that they are looking at the LGBTQ laws. One interesting thing that we need to understand is in 1973, when the original act was passed, there was no morning after pill. That 98% number that you mentioned, Abhijit, that kind of correlates with that. So we have to wait and see how that plays out. Next question, right, please.
And just to remember, tell me if incest has happened or rape has happened without a condom, do you not know that for the next few days or whatever, you have to have the morning after pill? Really? You have to wait to skip your periods to know that you're pregnant? Really? I find that a bit incredulous. So, especially now, given the morning after pill, I have actually taken my one friend, not once, but 3 times for an abortion. I didn't tell her about it. I shut up because she came to me as a friend. It wasn't for me to give her moral lectures or advice or anything like that. And anyway, I tend to be pro-choice on these things. But each one of those times, it was because I asked her, why didn't you just take the morning after pill? Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry, but you forgetting does not negate the right to life of a fetus. Especially when there is no clear science on when it becomes sentient or not. So till you have a science that tells you exactly when it feels pain and becomes sentient, you err on the side of protecting it. That's my view.
Next question, please. Mandar Karnik, the beheadings after government suspended Nupur Sharma were expected. Why does the government seem to have no strategy to deal with this issue?
Well, because it's a state subject. It's a state subject. Therein lies the problem. And remember, where the beheadings and things have been the most are non-BJP controlled states. They are both Congress states. One happened in Rajasthan, which is a Congress state. The other happened, which till last week was a Congress plus NCP plus Shiv Sena state. So they put in strategy a place. You haven't seen these things happen in BJP towns, have you? There were riots and they controlled those riots.
Abhijeet Mohanty, what do you make of the threats of DMK for a separate Tamil Nadu?
There's no appetite for it. One thing about Stalin is, under him, the party has gone back to these old slogans, which even Kalangir had given, Karunanidhi had given up on. The problem is Stalin still hasn't gotten out of that time capsule. He is still in that time capsule, and all the hangers on, like A. Raja, have to keep repeating these lines in order to curry favor. The real scary issue is that A. Raja was once a union cabinet minister. If he actually believes what he said, why did he even join the union cabinet? And anyway, they are not in a position to secede from India. It is simply not going to happen. I think when it comes to secession, the Indian government is absolutely ruthless, and it should. And I honestly don't give a shit about the sentiments of the people, but I can tell you there is no sentiment for secession.
Lone Wolf TV wants to know, India has missed the bus to industrialize. Isn't there any other way for India to increase GDP per capita, considering the current situation we are in, as our service sector isn't that great?
Look, unfortunately, there really isn't. There are things you can do. So, for example, you can, make your agriculture more, which is still industrialization. You can make your agriculture more commercial and open market. You don't want to do that. Or you try to do it, you backed off. You still don't want to industrialize. Okay. You don't want to help improve the education system and allow something. What are you going to do? You've basically missed the bus on everything now, boss. Once 3D printing comes about, that's the end of you. You will not be able to climb onto another bus, except as a subsidiary industry. And you remember, even in your service sector, it's a very inefficient sector. The comprehension problems are mounting, and many companies are leaving India. They BPO, they don't want it to be in India because they find the quality of processing very poor. Processing and customer service and data entry very poor, and they've shifted to other places. So no, there really isn't.
Krishna Aital wants to know, why is there a spurt in unrest since 2019 after BJP got re-elected with a bigger mandate?
I'll just read out the entire thing. Are they work of a liberal cabal? Do you see this as enough grounds for imposing emergency? No, it is not enough grounds for imposing emergency. But remember, this was what the BJP brought it on themselves. Never forget that. It was a test vehicle that started off with Shaheen Bagh. And when they were proven to be so weak with Shaheen Bagh, go back to my tweets during Shaheen Bagh. I went on saying, do you remember on this program, Shri?
Yes, I do. I remember saying, very clearly.
Right that if you don't crush this now, you are going to see this happen over and over and over and over again. They saw this as a means of a great street victory. And so they're capitalizing on it. They're going to do it. And in fact, it is going to increase. It is, if anything, the farm law withdrawal has given them a huge amount of spine. And you're going to see a lot more of this. Expect 1 or 2 every year.
Vamsi wants to know, what's your take on PLI scheme? Will it boost Indian manufacturing? Please answer my question.
Look, boosting in Indian manufacturing isn't just dependent on PLI. It's dependent on so many things like your tax regime, your regulatory regime, and things like that. If all of those were right, yes, PLI would increase it. Okay, this is like saying you are a patient on life support, and will me giving this one injection revive you if everything else is failing? If the drip isn't working properly, if the
Oxygen
oxygen,
mask.
what's it called?
Oxygen mask. Oxygen mask.
Yeah, if that isn't working properly, it can't. No. So remember, as I keep saying, system of systems, system of systems. Never talk about one. Tell me the one book I should read. There is no one book you should read. There is no one thing that improves manufacturing. It's the whole ecosystem that has to improve.
Reek Jyothi Hathi wants to know, is this winter in EU be horrible without gas?
Yes. It's going to be so much fun.
Sapta Arnab. What is the best possible way to reform laws and judiciary and do police reforms? Does the government lack will to do it, or are they unable to do it?
I think they're finally serious about it. I think after what's happened this week, look, I've been hearing that the government's gotten serious on judicial reforms almost about 2-3 months back. I think after what happened this week, it's given them a very significant boost after what Pardiwala and Suryakant did. Police reforms, on the other hand, nobody is serious about. What's the best way to reform the judiciary? Well, the judiciary is very simple: accountability. It has to be the exclusive reserve of the legislature to appoint judges. Judges don't get to appoint judges, and there needs to be measures of accountability and things like that on those judges. They need to be benchmarked by legislature, and legislature needs to act as a constant control on them. This is number one. There also has to be an easier way of getting rid of judges, especially when it comes with grave crimes like Gogoi's sexual harassment or the allegations of corruption against Suryakant, which incidentally he was elevated without even so much as a rudimentary investigation. Police reforms is a different thing, because police reforms involves a whole load of human capacity building. You have to have training modules, you have to have comprehension modules. It involves a simplification of the language of the law. Right now, the way laws are written, even I can't understand them. And I don't think my English is bad, by the way. There is that. There is basic human rights training that has to be given. There is training on process and procedure that has to be given. But for that, process and procedure has to be simplified very, very significantly. You have to have a certification process where, and it can't be you first learn it and then join. No. You join based on physical abilities and basic problem solving, and then through the course, you learn it. Then you have to separate the investigative from the enforcement. You have to enlarge it very significantly. Your police needs to be 10 times bigger than what it is currently. Okay, you need to increase their pay. And then there are smaller issues like how to arm them, what to arm them with to prevent scapegoating of police officers when things happen, to make them relatively independent of the executive, and keeping body cameras on them at all times, especially in the enforcement role.
Simple Life wants to know, why didn't Vijayanagara kings not try to replicate muskets in India when they used to regularly have Portuguese marksmen?
Apparently they did. It wasn't very successful. That's what I read somewhere. Was it Vijayanagara? I think. But it was definitely one of the southern kingdoms that tried it. It did not work because by this time, a lot of the metalworking skills had been lost. And by this time, some kind of an intellectual property regime had already set in the West, where they simply weren't willing to sell those technologies abroad. It was a very closely guarded, carefully managed thing. Because remember, the thing about muskets is casting a big, fat cannon is relatively easy. What happens is, it's kind of like this glass, you see. You pack in gunpowder, and then you put in a projectile here. and then explosion, you set fire to the gunpowder, which then blasts it out from one side. So you can make a cannon which is huge, very strong. The problem comes when firing a smaller projectile. How strong can you make the metal so that it can resist blast after blast after blast? And remember, like glass. So for example, if I heat this up, this is heat resistant glass. If I heat this up, it may be heat resistance. But if I pour cold water in it, will crack in seconds. So you have to see to it that the metal corrosion does not happen, etc., etc. And in the West was uniquely suited to it because of the importance of church bells. The gun industry in Europe, and the reason it progressed so far, was because metallurgy had developed for church bells. If you look at a church bell and you look at the earliest possible cannons, which were called mortars, you see that it is the same technology transferring onto guns. In India, we did not have these big bells. Remember, they were extremely rare and far between. So the kind of metallurgy required for this kind of thing simply did not exist. There was a knowledge transfer a regime that prevented it from happening. And that's why it really couldn't develop.
Uni Rider wants to know, Russian doctrine equals solid air defense, saturate enemy with dumb ordnance that cannot be jammed, simple drones plus good infantry tactics. More effective than costly NATO doctrine, air power centric, fail prone, sophisticated systems?
You're oversimplifying it, but roughly that is about it. Because remember, for all the drone footage and things like that you see coming out of the Ukrainian side, what you're not seeing is how many of those drones and missiles and things like that the Russians are actually shooting down. Dumb ordnance is fine. The problem is dumb ordnance is also pretty damn expensive to make. The problem is the planes carrying those dumb ordnance are dumb planes which are easy to shoot down, which is why you're looking at the sheer number of losses. So it's a very high, it's a solid strategy, but it's an extremely high attrition strategy. You end up losing a lot of your soldiers because they don't invest that much in their own soldiers. Okay, it is not more effective, it is merely a different strategy. NATO, because the individual is so highly valued in the NATO system, everything is designed to protect the individual. It works very well with NATO. It does not work well when a smaller country like Ukraine, a much poorer country like Ukraine. Today, Ukraine's per capita income is less than India's. And yet you will find Ukrainians saying, oh, these Russian orcs are trying to come and colonize us because we're richer than them. That's like, Bangladesh saying that actually Bangladesh is richer right now. But let's think of another country that's poor.
Sri Lanka.
Somalia. Even now, Sri Lanka is still richer than us. Higher Human Development Index. Excuse me. It's like Somalia saying that Indians are coming to colonize us because they are jealous of our living standards and our wealth. So NATO tactics are perfect for NATO. They're perfect for extremely developed countries like Taiwan or Israel or Japan or South Korea. They are not okay in countries like Ukraine or India or places like that.
Viewers, I request you to hold your questions for next week. We simply can't go through all the questions. Just let's hold your questions from here on. So we'll do it. Please send them next week. Let's go to the next question. VSS, both left and M have huge legal infra, pounding on anything and everything. It's scary. We have nothing. KK Venugopal and Tushar Mehta are huge failures with no motivation and weak arguments. What to do?
What to do is to go on focusing on human development. This is what the right never does. What can you do about it? You look at Modi's choices of people, he seems to choose the dumbest character in a 100-mile radius for the job. Right? Again, focus on the human being. That is what you focus on. There are smart people, but remember, the smarter you are, the less compliant you are. Here they demand 100% loyalty, like the Ismaili assassin, old man of the mountains used to demand of his assassins. Boss, you're not going to get that if people are smart. Obedience is the trait of draft animals, and human beings who are as dumb as draft animals. I think that's why they worship the cow, because they want humans to be as dumb as cows.
Kapil Gund wants to know what gave rise to sects in Christianity like Protestants, Baptists, Episcopals, Evangelicals, etc. How do they treat each other?
This is a very long historical. This will take 2-3 hours to go through. There are videos on this in YouTube, very good videos on YouTube. I suggest you go there because again, this is not just merely a question of theology. It's also a huge, complicated set of social factors that led to all these things.
Aditya B wants to know what does real communism look like? Does it work without breaking a few eggs?
So real communism looks like what China and the USSR did. That's exactly what real communism looks like. Okay, Sweden, Finland, Denmark are not examples of real communism, or because first they're examples of socialism that got saved because of wars, but private enterprise is still allowed. Communism is exactly what you saw in the USSR and China, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And it's all about breaking eggs. You cannot reach communism without breaking eggs, because the point of communism is a clean break from the past.
Next question, please. Malyaban Bhattacharya. Hi Abhijit. Post Columbus discovery of America and subsequent landing of British on the East Coast, did the then British government plan to send all its Puritans beforehand? We're talking about,
No.
I think, America.
Yeah. The Mayfair and all of that. No. The Puritans, after they got defeated, and especially after Cromwell's rebellion, and Charles II came back to power, the Puritans were persecuted viciously in Britain, as they should, because they were really lunatic, madcap, vicious fanatics. And they decided to leave Britain and come to America all by themselves. There was no plan to send them there.
Prem Raj, symbiosis or JNU for international relations?
If you want to learn symbiosis, if you want access to all this politics and things like that, then JNU. But symbiosis any day in terms of curriculum and teachers.
Anubhav Rai wants to know why India is behind Pak on Power Distance Index.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I have a feeling it has something to do with the consumer and the producer of electricity, the distance maybe. See, Pakistan is a very small country. It's a narrow stretch also. Don't look at the size and think they are big. There is hardly anybody living in much of Balochistan or in Khyber Pakhtun Valley. It's all along the Indus Valley. Harsha Tumuluri wants to know, Abhijit and IRG, explain how many seats will BJP win in 2024 and how Annamalai is turning the tables in TN politics and how many seats in IND, India. Also, how many seats in I don't know. Go ahead, you go first.
Look, I am not too sure that Annamalai is actually turning the tables. A lot of what I'm hearing is that it's mostly a social media phenomenon and things like that. He's a gounder. Gounders have traditionally not been the biggest advocates of Hindu politics, unlike, say, Tewars, who have been. And the Tewars are, ADMK is pretty much the Tevar party out there. So I'm not too sure that as good as Annamalai is in, grabbing the headlines and dominating the narrative, I'm yet to see how good he is at playing caste politics out there, or using religion to overcome caste politics, and I'm really not seeing that happen out there. Again, like I said, I'm not too sure. Now, how many seats will BJP win in 24? I am estimating over 330 for sure. Maharashtra, they're going to win big time. Like I said, the BMC, the council elections will determine the Vidhan Sabha, not the Lok Sabha. There, the BJP is going to win big time. Even in Gujarat, they will win. Whatever happens in the assembly elections, the BJP will win big time. Assam, they're going to win big time. Bengal is the only place where I see where there is a possibility of loss of seats. And that will be made up in other parts. Tamil Nadu is not one of those states where I see them making it up.
I have a slightly different viewpoint as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned. One of the things that happened in the National Executive Committee meeting that ended yesterday in Hyderabad, there are 30,000 booths, 30, in Telangana, and they had a representative from every booth, one or two people. The crowd, why I'm saying that is BJP has understood the ground plan. They needed to have people in every booth that reliably can tell this person lives in this particular street in this particular house. You need to be able to be that granular. And Annamalai is working towards that. Maybe his goal is not 2024, it is 2026. But if 2024 is going to be ADMK with BJP, 10 seats for BJP or the combine is not difficult. 10 seats out of 40. One is given. Pondicherry, BJP will win, whatever combine they go with. So the other 9 seats, I think it is doable. That's just my 2 cents.
I don't think so at all. Pondicherry, Kanyakumari, yes. But outside of Kanyakumari and Pondicherry, I don't think so.
Kongu Belt, all of them.
No. I disagree there completely. I don't see anything happening.
We'll see who's right and who's not. Rishabh Prasad wants to know, how do you see the future of Hindus in India and abroad, looking at the current situation in India?
Well, that depends on Hindus, doesn't it? In Britain, you saw them come together when Labour turned viciously anti-Hindu. They realized they didn't have. They realized that they didn't have the electoral power, but they did have the financial power, and they used it to screw over Labour. And they did it extremely successfully. And they got rewarded in the process that Preeti and Rishi have been made the highest profile Indian ministers ever. Right? In America, I'm seeing Hindus kind of come together thanks to Audrey Truschke and Ilhan Omar in a way that I have not seen. At the same time, it is nowhere near the kind of response that we saw in the UK. Okay,
no,
but unfortunately in India, let me finish. Unfortunately in India, if you go see my End of Hinduism podcast on Charvaka, I have 50, 60 years is all you have. After that, you're finished.
Oh, that can be changed. That's a different topic.
No, it can't. It can't be changed. It can't be changed unless
no,
there is
some. You can.
With the extraordinary. No, Shri, even you have that inferiority complex where you have to claim that we are a monotheistic religion. Why?
Hey, listen. I wanted to correct you on that. I did not say monotheism. What I said was polymorphism. Slightly different. What I said was Parabrahma does not have a rupa.
It does not matter. It does not
monotheism.
Matter.
It is not monotheism.
You do not believe he has a rupa. There are hundreds of thousands of Hindus who believe that they do have a rupa.
That is what is polymorphism, my friend.
No. It is not polymorphism.
No. Polymorphism is exactly that.
We are several different things. We are monotheistic. There are parts of us that are monotheistic. There are parts of us that are henotheistic. Like Vaishnavism, I would say, is mono-henotheistic because they refuse to acknowledge anything outside the Vaishnavite pantheon, and even there, Lakshmi is sort of inferior to Vishnu in a sense. So it has elements of monotheism. It has elements of this. For us Shaktas, it is completely different in the East. We have never believed in this formless, this thing. And yet, Smarthas do believe in the formless, this thing. So there is paganism, there is shamanism, there is monotheism, there is polymorphism. All of it exists in parallel. There is no one description of any school, one common description. For every one common description you give, I can give you a complete, anatomically opposite sect of Hinduism.
All right, let me finish this discussion by just saying one thing. Many of you use Chrome. Many of you also use a new browser called Microsoft Edge. then there is the Firefox, then there is Chromium, then there is Safari. Okay, all these come from the same code base for browsers. So if somebody who has an argument that, oh, this is better than this, that just means that there is some perception on somebody thinking that this is better. That is exactly what Hinduism is. I'm sorry, let's get on to the next question. We have a very short timeline. We have only 10 minutes left. I promise to let you go by 9:45. Divyanshu Srivastava says, how is threat from TB2 and Akinci drones for India?
So TB2 and Akinci are, see, people don't get this. The reason that they are partially successful in Ukraine, why do I say partially successful, is because they're being shot down left, right, and center by the Russians on the one hand. But for the time they're flying, they're able to accurately find Russian armor and troop concentrations and bomb them, is because they are being guided by a live Western intelligence and OSINT complex. Every single OSINT operator has been mobilized to provide live, up-to-date intel to the Ukrainian High Command. The West is using its entire resources to provide the targeting. Okay. Pakistan will not have access to it. See, you can have a drone that can correctly place the crosshairs and bomb something. But who's going to tell you that that thing is actually there? You need the intel complex for it. So, in an open field like Rajasthan, where you can fly over and find the intel yourself, yes. The problem is, we'll also be able to detect it and shoot it down. And therein, the plethora of systems that we have, we don't have a regularized. Some use the Spider, some are going to use something else, some are going to use VR SAM, some are going to use this, etc., etc., etc. We're not as networked and layered as the Russians are. So it is a very, very significant threat, especially because Pakistan has been working since day one on defeating our armored thrusts. We will understand this. Our Air Force may score big victories, but as far as our army is concerned, if they go in with armored columns, cold start style as was envisaged, you are going to have very, very, very dreadful casualties there. Probably worse than the Russians.
Comment please wants to know, US commercial might cost India's being nationality and language fluid. Can commercially accomplished Middle East as a land of opportunity as currently pushed make Hindus religion fluid?
I don't even understand what does this mean.
Fluid meaning like you can be this, you can be that.
No. I understand that, but how is US commercial might made India nationality and language fluid? I'm sorry, I just don't get it.
Sorry, you have to rephrase your question, please. Rephrase your question a little bit more clearly. Thank you. KM wants to know, for both of you, I'm getting MTech Renewable at IIT Delhi and Instrumentation at IISC Bangalore. Should I pursue it or go for MS abroad, and also suggest best country for a BTech in mechanical aiming for aerospace?
Go to America. Aerospace, you're not going to find anything better than America. And do not go for one of the top-end universities. Go for the second-tier or third-tier universities, which are extremely good. There are lots of those second-tier. I've personally seen one and taught in one University of Albuquerque, New Mexico, which I can tell you is a fantastic place. Their aerospace department is next level. You will literally, by your second or third year, you will be forced to make drones. You will get the business exposure to start talking to composite material suppliers, power generator suppliers, sensor suppliers and things. And your second or third year task is to actually make a drone which can carry a certain payload up to a certain altitude and out to a certain distance. And every year it keeps getting tougher and tougher and tougher, because you learn from all the mistakes and things and learnings of your previous batchmates. So the kind of investment, access to the business environment and things like that that you get in America, you will not get anywhere else. Just keep your head down and just allow the wokeness to go past and don't do anything I would do. Just try not to be Abhijit Iyer-Mitra.
And KM, look at two state universities, San Jose State and San Diego State. Both of them are very good. And the tuitions are much less than the non-state universities like UC Berkeley or UC San Diego. The state universities are cheaper, even for a non-state person. And once you live there for a year, you become in-state. After that, the tuition further goes down. Do your research. Both are very good schools.
Yeah, and so that's it.
Lord Noam 1000
I just want to say, he said San Jose, it's actually San Jose. In India, we call it San Jose.
Long Noam 1000 wants to know, sir, why have you in the past supported Bible-thumping, trigger-happy white supremacist Republicans?
Oh, yeah. This is just for sheer fun. Because I like those folks. Or let's put it this way. I dislike them less than I like Ilhan Omar type people. And as long the more and more Hindu-phobic the Democrats get, the more I will support white supremacist Bible thumpers, gun owners. Yes, unabashedly, unapologetically.
Next question, please. Yugesh Sai Reddy wants to know, most of the current SC judges whom I read about have family members who were previously either Supreme Court judges or Chief Justices. What's your view on this?
Of course. Look, the basic structure judgment out of which this collegium and so-called basic structure comes about is the most fundamental assault on the basic structure of the Constitution. To call it the basic structure judgment is like calling Hitler the champion of human rights. The collegium and the basic structure judgment represent an ongoing insurrection and high treason against the Indian Union, the balance of powers, and the checks and balances of state. As far as I'm concerned, anybody appointed under it is ultra-biased to the Constitution. They should not even require impeachment because it is ab initio a flawed appointment. That is my point of view on this. And that is why you look at the number of people coming out there, it is sheer nepotism. कैसे है कि बाप का बेटा ही जज बनेगा? Impossible. So they have failed on every count to regulate themselves. They have failed to regulate nepotism. As we've seen with Suryakant, they failed to regulate corruption, both with Suryakant and Gogoi to an extent. With Gogoi, they failed to regulate sexual harassment. He sat over his own proceedings, and they did not even have a POSH committee, which every institution is required to have. POSH is prevention of sexual harassment as per Indian law. And with Pardiwala, they failed to gauge a history of intemperate over the line remarks. Okay, so they have failed in every single one of their duties. The collegium has failed. If you want to see what a failed institution looks like, look no further than the collegium. And it is a completely unconstitutional, its very existence is an ongoing coup against the Indian state. It's that simple.
Next question from Saurabh Sinha, most likely the last question for today. Abhijit, is communism a euphemism to dictatorship?
Yes, it is. And you know why? They call it the dictatorship of the proletariat. They don't even hide it. They call it the dictatorship of the proletariat. So it has always been crystal clear that they were going to be a dictatorship.
And this is the very last question. No more questions, please. 2 questions. Has BJP under Modi become too Congress-esque and is no more a Hindu party? Second, why doesn't BJP make Sharia compulsory for Muslims of India?
I don't think they'll do the second. There's enough constitutional protections to prevent that. But yes, I think they are getting more and more Congressy in that it's become individual-based rather than ideology-based. And all the ideological compromise are passed off in terms of election success. And even that election success is attributed to just one person. In their Congress, it's one family. Here, it's one person.
That brings us to a close of today's session, and we have to figure out a way to get your unanswered questions taken care of. Abhijit, I hope you are going to settle down now, because we have a backlog of about 80 to 90 questions. Maybe one shot, we will give you the whole thing and you work through that if you don't mind. We will split it up and put it so that we'll do it right. We'll know how to do that. So thank you so much, Abhijit. Viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. We are P as in pen, is an ink. We think that the pen is mightier than the sword, and for the ink to flow from the pen, we need your help. Please support us through either you can send us donations on paypal.me/PGurus, or you can show your appreciation using super thanks. You can also become a member. So we can do it in many ways. So all we are saying is we don't want to go and get some institute to fund us, because then they'll expect us to use that slant, which we are not doing. You know very well, we take a critical look at everything and we criticize everybody. Thank you very much, Abhijit. Namaskar.
Well.